That's a Tarantella by Giuseppe Martucci in a performance by the Philharmonia, conducted by Francesco Davalos. And a pleasant morning to you. Just ahead is the BBC News, and after that we'll have the famous William Tell Overture by Rossini, as well as Mozart's Jupiter Symphony. We'd like to remind you about a broadcast this evening at 6:30. It's Rabbit Ears Radio. Jack Nicholson is the storyteller tonight on The Elephant's Child. 6:30 off for Rabbit Ears Radio, and after that it's the San Francisco Symphony. This is KBYU-FM, Provo, Salt Lake City, and Ogden. The time now is 10 o'clock.
Good morning and welcome to Community Cable News. Spanish Fork Mayor Huff is upset with 3 Payson High School students. I'm Issa Arnita.
And I'm Chris Cummings. Plain old popcorn is healthy, but how good can it taste?
But first, a Dutch conglomerate struck a deal with Great Britain to buy the recently failed Barings Bank. Correspondent Todd Benjamin reports on the deal's condition.
Collapsed British merchant bank Barings getting a new lease on life. Dutch banking and insurance group ING concluding the deal in late-night haggling, beating out a bid from Dutch rival bank ABN AMRO and U.S. investment bank Smith Barney, who wanted parts of the bank.
There was a much bigger match, I think, between most of the rivals and what Barings actually does as a stockbroker and as an investment bank. But of course it was a question of who could foot the bill and pay the bonuses. And in the end, I think ING was the only company which was willing to do that. They have a very, very deep pocket indeed.
ING agreed to immediately supply £660 million, or more than $1 billion in cash, to allow Barings to resume trading. And it appears Barings' 4,000 employees will be keeping their jobs, as well as getting those 1994 bonuses that were due to be paid just before Barings collapsed. Some executives, however, are waiving those bonuses. The announcement of the deal comes just 1 week after Barings, the UK's oldest merchant bank, failed, and a shell-shocked Barings pointed the finger at 28-year-old Singapore-based trader Nick Leeson, who bet wrong on the direction of the Tokyo stock market and racked up more than $1 billion in derivatives losses. An internal report shows Barings realized last summer that controls on Leeson's trading activities relaxed, but the bank took no action. Questions about the Singapore office had been raised as far back as 1992. Meanwhile, trader Leeson remains in custody in Frankfurt, with Singapore wanting to extradite him on forgery charges. Administrators for Barings wanted to sell the Blue Blood institution quickly and in one piece. Assuming fast regulatory approval, that's been accomplished, but investigations into the firm's spectacular collapse are likely to drag on for months. Todd Benjamin, CNN Business News, London.
The bank hopes the Dutch deal will put it back in business within a few days. And Japanese corporations have started preparing for the fiscal year, which starts in April. And for them, the currency crisis that Barings contributed to couldn't have come at a worse time. Corporate executives are playing a costly game, trying to forecast whether the yen will eventually settle or not. Correspondent Kelly Arena has more on the economic woes in Tokyo.
Japanese companies are scrambling to figure out the effects a stronger yen will have on profits.
What it also means for Japanese companies, of course, is that they're going to have to make money at 90 yen to the dollar instead of 100 yen to the dollar. And for a lot of them, that's not going to be possible because many were struggling desperately to make profits at 100. And so what does that mean? It means that everyone's going to squeeze further.
That means finding ways to cut wages, lower production costs, and negotiate better deals with suppliers. Unfortunately, many companies have done about all the cost-cutting that they can do, so they're moving production out of Japan to lower-wage economies such as Southeast Asia and China. Toshiba is one of them. But the company admits that even that won't help profits near term.
It takes time, so we started shifting the production in the past, and still we try to start shifting the production of certain products overseas. But real result will come only some years later. So this is rather long-term measure.
Toshiba says it loses $1 billion each time the currency falls another yen. Currently, the concern is focused on Japanese companies that export, like Toshiba, but the yen's rise affects all of Japan. Economists figure that each 5 yen increase shaves about 0.5% off growth. If the yen continues to surge, it will pose a serious threat to this economy, still in the very early stages of recovery. Kelly Arena, CNN Business News, Tokyo.
Experts say the yen will continue to rise for the next few days, but hope that it will peak soon.
Parents of nearly 1,000 students at Koger Elementary School await word on how their children will finish the school year. A fire burned down their building on Saturday. School district officials canceled classes today after looking at their options in an emergency meeting last night. District officials say they might send the children to several other schools or send the entire student body to one other school, which would create split school days that would begin before 7 a.m. for some students and end after 7 p.m. for others. 3 high school students in Payson were punished over the weekend for vandalizing the Spanish Fork Municipal Swimming Pool. And Spanish Fork Mayor Marie Huff says they got off too easy. The students were fined a total of $250 for causing $75,000 worth of damage to the pool. Mayor Huff says they should also perform community service work. The incident took place last September when the boys tried to color the pool's water with 8 gallons of paint. The paint ruined the filtration system and the tiles of the pool.
Well, straight ahead, we'll get the skinny on the new improved movie popcorn.
Melissa Freeman joins us with that story and more next.
And now a few words about raising children as we
run, jump, climb, walk, laugh and cry, throw, fetch, play catch, slip and slide, listen, swim, eat, grin, cook and cheer, giggle, wait, talk straight, woo, be there.
Love isn't just something you say, it's something you do. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
I didn't want to do it. I didn't either. I didn't want to do it.
Well, I thought that we wouldn't be able to party if they were there.
Yeah, I thought that.
I know.
You know, all of a sudden somebody, I don't even remember who it was, said that, you know, what about inviting the older people and making it a seniors prom, you know, including the senior citizens.
You think of old people and they seem like they're so lonely and stuff. It was just good to be a part of it and come in there and make them feel all really special and stuff, like they're wanted, and go up and dance with them.
But they made us feel good too.
Another young man came and cut in. And it was so fun, because that hasn't happened to me since I was a kid.
I was kind of embarrassed, but I just went up and I said, you know, hey, good taste, you know. And then she says, yeah, you too.
I think we showed them a thing or two, and I think we outdanced a lot of them.
It was almost like just having them that happy was like they gave me back the world.
Yeah. Whenever someone, somewhere, serves someone else, there is truly cause to celebrate. A message from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
We're inviting them back for Valentine's.
For millions of people, movies just wouldn't be the same without theater popcorn. But reports of high-fat content slowed popcorn sales last year and prompted many theaters to make a change. Reporter Carolyn O'Neill has the latest on the new improvements in popcorn.
The popcorn's still flowing in movie theaters nationwide, but there's been a recipe change.
We've seen big improvements over the past year in the kind of popcorn that's being popped at your local movie theater.
In April of last year, the Center for Science in the Public Interest blew popcorn lovers out of their movie seats with news that popcorn popped in coconut oil was far from the healthy snack most folks thought. In fact, it was oozing with artery-clogging saturated fats.
It's twice as bad as beef fat. It's twice as fat as lard. And I think that's why people were so shocked last year when we analyzed movie theater popcorn and saw how outrageously high in saturated fat and fat it was.
Since then, Hurley says 9 out of 10 movie theater chains have switched to healthier oils for popping corn, including canola oil and safflower oil. Some even offer air-popped corn.
It just goes to show how much power the consumer really has.
But nutritionists aren't giving any oil popcorn a total thumbs up. Even corn popped in the healthiest oils can be very high in fat and calories.
It's fattening.
So consumer demand for popcorn without all the fat is driving a change in supermarket aisles too, where more light lines are popping up.
You can air pop or oil pop at home. You have a wide variety of oils that are low in saturated fat that you can pop popcorn in. So there really are a lot of options for the popcorn connoisseur or lover.
But not everyone's changing the oil. United Artists is holding out.
The taste. It's the taste that people have, kind of grown to like.
Meanwhile, all the hype over the type of oil used to popcorn in hasn't affected its overall popularity. Over 1,158 million pounds of popcorn are gobbled up by Americans every year. And the Popcorn Institute says it's gaining popularity worldwide. Carolyn O'Neill, CNN reporting.
Experts say that for those who eat the popcorn at United Artists theaters, the popcorn has 5 times the amount of fat an adult should have in a day. The stars glittered in Hollywood and on your TV last night for the 21st Annual People's Choice Awards. Garth Brooks won Favorite Male Musical Performer, and Reba McEntire beat out Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston for Favorite Female Musical Performer. The People chose Aerosmith over the Rolling Stones and the Eagles as the favorite musical group. Forrest Gump won Favorite Motion Picture and Favorite Movie Drama. Gump star Tom Hanks walked away with the honor of Favorite Actor in a Dramatic Role. Home Improvement nailed down the award for Favorite TV Comedy Series. Star Tim Allen also won Favorite TV Actor. Allen might even need to build an addition to house his other awards. He walked away with the Favorite Movie Comedy Actor for his role in The Santa Claus, which also won the Favorite Movie Comedy Award. The People's Choice Awards are determined by a poll of the public rather than industry professionals. So, Chris, when you went to see Forrest Gump, did you buy the theater popcorn?
I didn't. I like popcorn sometimes, but I'm not a real big fan.
That's way too expensive.
It is. It is.
Fattening and expensive. I don't know. It doesn't sound very appealing.
Yeah. Well, Twizzlers are still the hottest choice in theaters, and they're fat-free. So, there's my choice.
That sounds good. Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks.
Well, Colombia's second earthquake in less than a month killed at least 5 people. The 5.2 quake damaged some buildings and temporarily cut telephone and power service in southern Colombia on Saturday. A less powerful aftershock struck 4 minutes later. On February 8th, a 6.5 magnitude quake hit central Colombia, killing at least 44 people. Well, Jason Scarabin now joins us with a look at the weather. And Jason, over the weekend we had some serious storms. How's that looking for this week?
That's right, Issa. You would never know it by looking at the weather outside, though. Saturday was a beautiful day. I'll have the details next. Stay with us.
When I was about 13, I had the worst paper route in the history of paper routes.
Oh, you looked so pathetic wobbling down the street at 4 in the morning on your overloaded bike.
But the last thing I wanted was to admit I couldn't do it by myself.
And the last thing I wanted was to get out of bed.
Oh, remember? The first rainstorm changed all that.
We worked out this great system.
Yeah, well, it was sort of a great system. You drove in the truck while I ran in the rain.
And we decided to make it a weekly event.
Only after you promised to slow down.
We'd start in the garage folding all those papers.
And just talk. That was my favorite part.
And Dad, he'd sit there half awake and mumble something about teaching responsibility.
You know, I think he read more papers than he folded.
Oh, we were quite the team, weren't we?
Well, I still think you were driving a little too fast, Mom.
Oh, Charlie.
When you put your family first, you're building relationships that last. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Hello? Hello, Mommy.
Hi, sweetheart.
Mr. Larson let me call.
Oh, that's great.
Guess what? Today we're learning how to sort things. What you learning, Mom?
I'm learning to sort things too.
You need me to help you?
We believe every child deserves quality care. Please call and we'll do all we can to help you look for it.
Pizza on the run. This is Chris. How may I help you?
This is the TDD operator.
It took an act of Congress to order this pizza.
I have an order for pizza.
An act that guarantees people with disabilities access to everyday things, whether it's getting into a building, getting a job, or just using the telephone.
Olives, green peppers.
Thanks to your support through Easter Seals, even ordering a pizza can be a pretty historic act.
And pineapple.
Pineapple. Okay.
Well, the weather is really nice out there now. You would never know we had a terrible storm over the weekend. It's really nice outside, sunny. Let's take a look at the current temperatures. It's 34 degrees currently, sunny. Bit of trivia, a hurricane, in order to reach a Category 5 on the Saffir scale, it needs to be sustained winds of 155 miles per hour. Let's go to national temperatures. We've got mostly 70s along the southern border of the U.S., down in the 80s down in Florida, kind of a dip in the nation's midsection in the temperatures. Taking a look at the national pressure map, the severe thunderstorms here along the southeastern coast, clear down in Florida. Drying in the west, as you can see outside. It's really nice outside right now. We've got kind of like a pair of fronts here. Let's go to the satellite map now. Here is the mother lode, so to speak, of the weekend. It kind of gives you the idea that the Earth is turning or something, doesn't it? We've got like a little band coming through the northwest that should be hit. I would suspect that we'll have a major storm by the end of the week. Utah lows, 41 down in St. George, 40 in Moab, 37 here in Provo. Taking a look at the highs, we've got, I'm in the way, 61 down in St. George, 56 in Salt Lake. And looking at the 4-day forecast, 56 on Tuesday and sunny. The clouds will start moving in on Wednesday. Thursday, much the same in the 50s, lows in the 30s. Friday, 49, and like I said earlier, I think a major storm will be here by the end of the week.
So it's clearing up a little bit, giving us some sunshine, but then
right, teasing us. It's very confusing weather.
Okay,
very
thanks, Jason.
confusing weather. You're welcome.
Thanks. Well, the Cougars see red Saturday evening in the Huntsman Center, and America's east and west coasts dominate the slopes.
With one Idahoan picking up her 4th World Cup win for the season, Sarah Dascanio joins us next with sports.
Vince, that new dummy cam is great.
Yeah, it'll sure give people a whole new outlook on what it's like when you don't wear a safety belt.
I think they'll get the picture.
You could learn a lot from a dummy. Buckle your safety belt.
Hector, smile for Mommy. Oh, that's a good Hector.
What are you doing this weekend that's so important you can't take a little time to test your home for radon? After all, it is the second leading cause of lung cancer, and a radon test kit is inexpensive. You could pick one up on your way to get more film.
4 and 20 blackbirds baked in a pie.
The difference between an ordinary day and an extraordinary one is really not so much what you do, but who you're doing it for.
Celebrating the light that shines in everyone. Celebrating the light of the world. Celebrating the light.
Whenever someone, somewhere, serves someone else, there is truly cause to celebrate.
Ever played baseball?
From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
The Utes splashed war paint all over the Cougars, relying on freshmen and sophomores to throttle the Cougars 87-79 and clinch the WAC's regular season championship. In a nationally televised contest that ended in the wee hours of Sunday morning, Utah took charge with a big second-half run, then fought off a BYU rally in the final 4 minutes to finish 24-5 overall and 15-3 in the WAC. Ranked the #1 seed, the Utes opened the conference tourney Thursday night at 6:30 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Yesterday, the American Downhill Men's World Cup race ended early due to poor visibility and heavy snowfall. But officials did rule on the race, and A.J. Kitt of Rochester, New York, came out as king of the hill with a time of 1 minute 45 seconds, 0.46 seconds, Queen of the Hill, Kbyu Street of Sun Valley, Idaho, topped off the Women's Downhill World Cup race yesterday. Street swooshed to the finish line in 1 minute 37.87 seconds. An interesting note about Kbyu Street: after her silver medal win at the Olympics last year, a hospital in her hometown of Sun Valley named its new intensive care unit after her, making it the Kbyu ICU. And our play of the day comes from the sunny South. From the Big South Championship, Charleston Southern is down 1 point to UNC Greensboro with 5 seconds left. They go for it. Oops, it's a miss, and swoop, there it is. Fans are going wild. That was Brett Larrick that got that note in there. Loose ball, that was Eric Burks, and that's seen as play of the day. What do you think about that hospital wing in Sun Valley?
Kind of scary. I don't know if I'd want to go there.
That scares me. I don't know.
It was Kbyu ICU. I don't know if it's very attractive or desirable for intensive care.
Should have been the maternity ward or something.
Maybe. I don't know.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks.
Well, up next, Angie Burden joins us with a man who's seen foreign places on foot.
And we'll show you a 78-year-old who can shred the slopes like a teenager. Stay with us.
Remember how good it felt the first time you gave 5? Well, now there's another way to give 5. Set a goal to give more. 5 hours a week and 5% of your income to the causes you care about. It'll make you feel like a winner every day of your life. So give more. Give 5. Call 1-800-55-GIVE-5.
This is not a drill.
Roger, have target in sight.
This is what we do.
Swimmer away.
Every day in the Coast Guard. Battling the elements to save lives is just one of the real missions we tackle.
Swimmer checking victim. Coming up.
Be part of the action in the Coast Guard. Call now toll free.
Think of all the beautiful things you wouldn't see if you lost your sight. If you're over 60 or black and over 40, vision loss from glaucoma is a real possibility. But glaucoma can be treated, and the risk of blindness reduced if it's detected early through an eye examination with dilated pupils. So get your eyes examined. Don't lose sight of glaucoma. Get the facts. Write Box 2020, Bethesda, Maryland, 20892.
Youth hostels, the Euro-Rail, and a single backpack may not be your idea of a dream vacation, but it was for our guest today. Here to tell us about his adventures is Kevin Koger, who backpacked through several European countries by himself for 6 weeks last summer. Thanks, Kevin, for joining us today.
No problem.
Kevin, why backpacking through Europe?
Well, backpacking because I couldn't afford to go any other way, and Europe because I served a mission in southern France, and since I've been home, I've always wanted to go back, and that was my chance to do it.
Great. What countries did you visit?
Well, I started in France and spent a majority of my time there because I knew people and could stay for free, and I was on a very limited budget. But I also went to Germany, Spain, Austria, Switzerland, Czechoslovakia, Italy, Greece, Turkey, and Hungary.
And those are great countries. What exciting things did you see?
Well, one of my favorite places, I guess, would have been the Greek islands. I took a ferry. I'd made my way down to Turkey, went to Istanbul, went down the coast in Turkey, and then I took ferries in through the Greek islands. And they're beautiful. It was warm. It was in late October, but it was still warm and sunny. Got to stay on the beaches. It was really nice. And also, another surprising favorite that I had was the city of Prague in Czechoslovakia. I hadn't heard too much about it, but I went there, loved the city. It's beautiful, full of energy, and exploding since it's become a free nation.
Right. So you do speak French, I take it. You served a mission in France?
Yes, that's another reason that it was good to stay in France, because I could speak with the people.
Right. So what did you do when you were out of France and you had to speak, other European languages?
I didn't get to speak much. You look for people that speak English, but often, especially in the Eastern European countries, you can't find many people that do speak English. So you hope that they can understand your gestures and sign language and get the idea across that you need a bathroom and not dinner or something.
Yeah, I would hope that you could make that distinguish between the bathroom and dinner, yeah. Did you have any interesting experiences with any of the people over there? Anything that scared you or that was just interesting?
Well, one of the fun things about staying in youth hostels is that you do meet a lot of people. I went by myself, and every time I stayed in a youth hostel, I would meet other people, sometimes Americans, sometimes Australians, or I met lots of Canadians. And if we had planned to stay in the city for a few days and we were going to be there together, we would stay together, run around the city together, and I met a lot of really fun people that way. And I met people that I'm still staying in contact with now.
Good. Really quick, did you have any, backpacking, you only had one backpack, is that correct?
Right.
Did you use any special techniques of packing to get everything in there that you needed for 6 weeks to 2 months?
Well, the main technique is just not to take very much. And you don't need many clothes, especially if you're going in the warmer weather. You can just take shorts and t-shirts. And just try to get rid of all the extras and then shove it all in. Rolling it up works nicely instead of folding it.
How much total did your trip cost?
Including all my tickets and all my travel and everything, just over $2,500. So it's really not quite as expensive as some people might think.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Back to you, Chris and Issa.
Well, thanks, Angie and Kevin. Not many senior citizens know how to snowboard, but a 70-year-old Colorado man says he's still the king of the mountain.
Jan Tracy gives us a look at the big daddy of snowboarding.
There's a rite of passage to snowboarding, crash a lot to learn, wear funky flannels, baggy pants, and weird hats. And usually be young.
12.
14.
Too old for this.
But how old is too old?
Do you think?
It's a guy named Pat who works here at Loveland. He's really old, and he can pull some good tricks.
How old is he?
I think he's around in his 30s.
You thought I was the old guy snowboarder. Okay.
How old are you?
I'm 43 years old.
Today, even 43 is a youngster. Meet Myra Knapschafer, the one doing the wheelie.
Pretty cool. Can you do that? No. That's some awesome stuff, man.
For a guy that's half a century older than these kids, that ain't too bad, huh?
Knapschafer is 70 years old.
I think some of the guys that are 40 and maybe 50 years old think they're the oldest on the slope, and then when they run into me, they go back home and talk to mama for a while, you know. See, this just takes zero amount of energy.
Knapschafer took up snowboarding when he was only about...
Well, I'm not good at arithmetic, but it was 12 years ago.
He was only 58 when he learned to snowboard and never was a skier. Knapschafer does wheelies and tip slides and goes back for more. He swears it's his equipment that makes it so easy. Knapschafer designs boards unlike what the kids wear.
You're right, these kids want something, they want the superficial, anything that looks real good, and as long as they can do the switch stance jump, that's all they need.
Knapschafer says young snowboarders today have what he calls wet butt syndrome because they're frequently on their bottoms rather than their boards. He'll turn 71 next month, and as for when he plans to hang up the old board...
I don't know. That's like asking a guy when he's going to drop dead.
Well, I hope I'm still in that good a shape when I'm 72 years old.
Definitely not only shape, but the balance. I mean, he was doing some pretty tricky stuff there for his age.
Yeah, looking great.
Yeah, good for him. Well, that's Community Cable News for Monday, March 6th.
Join us tomorrow when Angie Burden talks with someone who won't have a problem paying his insurance premiums. Have a great day.
Well, it's kind of a tease into tomorrow's show. It's pretty interesting.
Funding for this program was provided by the Annenberg CPB Project.
She thanked men. Good. But thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900 years old name with anybody's gift.
This is a poem I've loved ever since I was a little girl. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there's some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. On the surface, it's such a simple poem. The setting is a lonely road on a snowy winter night. There are three characters: the unseen man in the village who owns the property, the horse, and the speaker, also called the persona. What has perplexed many readers, and what brings me to reread this poem, are the things Frost doesn't quite explain. Why is the speaker stopped to watch the snow falling? And what do these woods that are lovely, dark, and deep represent to him? In this and other poems, character and setting can be tantalizing clues to a poem's meaning. My Last Duchess by Robert Browning is set amid the splendors of the Duke of Ferrara's fabulous art collection. This setting, like the other elements of the poem, is not accidental. It contributes to our understanding of the Duke and the overall impact of the poem.
That's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call that piece a wonder now. Frau Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Wilt please you sit and look at her? I said Frau Pandolf by design, for never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance, but to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you but I, and seemed as they would ask me, if they durst, how such a glance came there. So not the first are you to turn and ask thus. Sir, 'twas not her husband's presence only called that spot of joy into the Duchess's cheek. Perhaps Frau Pandolf chanced to say, her mantle laps over my lady's wrist too much. Or, paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half-flush that dies along her throat. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. She had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She liked whate'er she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. Sir, 'twas all one, my favor at her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west, The bough of cherries some officious fool broke in the orchard for her. The white mule she rode with round the terrace. All and each would draw from her alike the approving speech, or blush, at least.
This dramatic monologue is recited by the Duke, and although he is describing his last Duchess, we're seeing a vivid portrait of him as well. For Alvin Aubert, setting is significant in creating the Duke's portrait.
Browning has the poem set in 16th century, in a 16th century Italian city-state, the name of which is it's in a castle of a count. We associate such a setting with intrigue.
The Duke is a figure of absolute power in his political unit, if you want to put it that way. Where is the political unit? Well, it's a city-state. Where were there city-states? Well, in Italy, in the Renaissance, before the Renaissance. You have to have in other words, you've got to have a particular kind of world in which there is such a thing as absolute power, with soldiers or attendants who are obliged to do the bidding of their employer, as we would now put it, where there is no justice system except the justice system that's administered by one man, the Duke. You have to create that kind of world, political world, in order to create this kind of character.
She thanked men. Good. But thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900 years old name with anybody's gift. Who'd stoop to blame this sort of trifling? Even had you skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear to such an one and say, just this or that in you disgusts me, here you miss, or there exceed the mark. And if she let herself be lessoned so, nor plainly set her wits to yours forsooth, and made excuse, e'en then would be some stooping. And I choose never to stoop. Oh, sir, she smiled, no doubt, whene'er I passed her, but who passed without much the same smile? This grew, I gave commands, then all smiles stopped together. There she stands, as if alive. Will it please you rise? We'll meet the company below then. I repeat, the Count your master's known munificence is ample warrant that no just pretense of mine for dowry will be disallowed, though his fair daughter's self, as I avowed at starting, is my object. Nay, we'll go together down, sir. Notice Neptune, though, taming a seahorse, thought a rarity, which Claus of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me.
At a moment of poetic climax, the Duke admits he is responsible for his wife's death. For William Westermann, the presence of the Duke's visitor adds to the drama of the revelation.
You wonder why the envoy is silent, but that silence, I take it, as it's prolonged, is the silence of deep shock, and that makes an effective response to the kind of rattling on that the Duke continues to do after he's revealed what it is that he's done to his last Duchess.
Why is the Duke's art collection a fitting place for his admission?
Everything exists in his world as a kind of an adjunct of his taste, his aesthetic pleasure. It's perfect that this picture of the Duchess be shown forth with pride, because it's evidence that, from the Duke's point of view, of the exquisiteness of his taste.
That he views her as a piece of his collection, and always did view her as a piece of collection, is just as happy with her now in painted form, happier in painted form than he was before, is the horrifying thing about him.
In Browning's poem, Setting was used almost like a magnifying glass. It enlarged and thus revealed the Duke's true nature. But what about the other way around? Can a character tell us something about setting, about a particular time and place? In Langston Hughes' Theme for English B, the persona is a young black man attending a nearly all-white university. In the poem, he addresses himself to his older white English teacher.
The instructor said, "Go home and write a page tonight. And let that page come out of you. Then it will be true." I wonder if it's that simple. I'm 22, colored, born in Winston-Salem. I went to school there, then Durham, then here to this college on the hill above Harlem. I am the only colored student in my class. The steps from the hill lead down to Harlem, through a park. Then I cross St. Nicholas, 8th Avenue, 7th, and I come to the Y. The Harlem Branch Y, where I take the elevator up to my room, sit down, and write this page. It's not easy to know what's true for you or me at 22, my age. But I guess I'm what I feel and see and hear. Harlem, I hear you. Hear you. Hear me. We two. You, me, talk on this page. I hear New York too. Me. Who? Well, I like to eat, sleep, drink, and be in love. I like to work, read, learn and understand life. I'd like a pipe for a Christmas present. Or records, Bessie, Bob, or Bach. I guess being colored doesn't make me not like the same things other folks like who are other races. So will my page be colored that I write? Being me, it will not be white, but it will be a part of you, instructor. You are white, yet a part of me is I'm a part of you. That's American. Sometimes, perhaps, you don't want to be a part of me, nor do I often want to be a part of you. But we are. That's true. As I learn from you, I guess you learn from me. Although you're older and white and somewhat more free. This is my page for English B.
Here is a character and a situation that would seem to be the Duke's exact opposite. Yet in both poems, the reader experiences a powerful sense of place, a feeling that the persona belongs to a unique time and location. How does the understanding of setting affect our reading of this poem?
If you know that part of Manhattan, New York City, you know that Columbia University, where the young speaker in the poem goes to school, is located on a hill above Harlem. And so he has to climb the hill to go to Columbia, and then he comes back down to the hill and re-enters Harlem, you see. And then he is staying at the Harlem YMCA. So when he comes back home to the Harlem YMCA, he goes up the stairs or the elevator to his room in that building, which sort of puts him on an equal level with the professor he has just left at the university. So he is not talking up from Harlem to him, he's talking directly across to him.
Who he is and what is true about him has a lot of different expressions in terms of setting. And he kicks it upstairs at the end of the poem by saying, I'm an American. That's something that encompasses not only Columbia and Harlem, but both of them at the same time.
The speaker, the persona of Theme for English B, tells us he's only 22 years old. Yet Langston Hughes wrote the poem when he was 57. This points out the difference between poet and persona. The persona is the voice that the poet assumes for one particular poem. It is not the poet himself. A poet may choose in the next poem to speak as a completely different character in a completely different place or time. To the extent that the persona, the other characters, and the setting are less familiar to me as a reader, I may find it more difficult to understand the poem. And often, if a poem is from another era, it will refer to events and ideas that a contemporary reader may not understand. That's one reason some critics feel it's helpful for a reader to know something of the background and context of a poem. For instance, to understand the poem Theme for English B, it's important to remember that in 1959, when the poem was written, America was a society segregated by race. In a similar way, it can be helpful to know something of the England of 1867 when reading Matthew Arnold's Dover Beach. The years between 1800 and the beginning of the First World War witnessed many great scientific discoveries and countless new inventions. The impact of these new technologies was perhaps strongest in England, where the Industrial Revolution had begun. It was there, in 1848, that Karl Marx published the Communist Manifesto. 11 years later, the Englishman, Charles Darwin, published his new theory of evolution in a book entitled On the Origin of Species. Both of these books challenged the prevailing worldview, particularly that of the established Christian churches. Marx claimed that religion was the opiate of the masses, while Darwin suggested man was descended from apes. It is not surprising, then, that the latter part of the 19th century was a time of great doubt, an era marked by nostalgia for the certainty of the past.
The sea is calm tonight. The tide is full. The moon lies fair upon the straits. On the French coast, the light gleams and is gone. The cliffs of England stand glimmering and vast out in the tranquil bay. Come to the window. Sweet is the night air. Only from the long line of spray where the sea meets the moon-blanched land, listen. You hear the grating roar of pebbles which the waves draw back and fling at their return up the high strand. Begin and cease, and then again begin, with tremulous cadence slow, and bring the eternal note of sadness. Sophocles long ago heard it on the Aegean, and it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery. We find also in the sound a thought, hearing it by this distant northern sea. The sea of faith was once too at the full, and round earth's shore lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. But now I only hear its melancholy, long, withdrawing roar, retreating to the breath of the night wind, down the vast edges drear and naked shingles of the world. Ah, love, let us be true to one another. For the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new, hath really neither joy, nor love, nor light, nor certitude, nor peace, nor help for pain. And we are here as on a darkling plain, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night.
In the mid-19th century, many people felt a crisis of faith as science and technology toppled one religious certainty after another. In Dover Beach, the speaker watches grimly as the sea of faith recedes and concludes that the only safety left in the world is in the love of one person for another. The specific setting described in the poem contributes to this meaning. Maxine Cummins uses a very different setting in her poetry. Cummins' poetry is often rooted in the rural New Hampshire landscape that has been her home for more than 25 years.
I'm a poet of the seasons. I'm a poet of the natural world. I have written some poems about New England people, the ways that they live, the Henry Manley poems specifically.
Hello, hello, Henry. My neighbor in the country, Henry Manley, with a washpot warming on his wood stove, with a heifer and 2 goats and yearly chickens, has outlasted Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill, but something's stirring in him in his dotage.
A poem for me is done when I can't push it around anymore, when anything more I do to it begins to feel stale and unprofitable.
That must have been about the time that Henry walked up 2 miles, shy as a girl come calling, to tell me he has a phone now, 264, ring 2. It rang one time last week, wrong number. He'd be pleased if one day I would think to call him. Hello, hello, Henry. Is that you?
Maxine Cummins' poems about New England's landscapes and people have brought her national recognition, a Pulitzer Prize in 1973, and an appointment in 1981 as consultant in poetry to the Library of Congress. She also travels throughout the country giving poetry readings.
Ideally, I'd like to be able to read my poems aloud to an audience that, for the most part, had the books in their hand. Poetry is oral, from the mouth. It's A-U-R-A-L, from the ears, and it's also visual. And when you can bring all those elements together, chances are you're going to get much, much more from the poem.
Woodchucks. Gassing the woodchucks didn't turn out right. The knockout bomb from the feed and grain exchange was featured as merciful, quick at the bone, and the case we had against them was airtight, both exits shoehorned shut with pudding stone, but they had a sub-basement out of range.
Cummins' poems are specific, concrete, detailed, and her style echoes that approach.
I think that we as poets need to write subject, verb, object, that the simple declarative sentence is, it's good for us.
There's one chuck left, Old wily fellow, he keeps me cocked and ready day after day after day. All night I hunt his humped up form. I dream I sight along the barrel in my sleep. If only they'd all consented to die unseen, gassed underground, the quiet Nazi way.
Cummings uses rhyme and meter in most of her poetry. She says they make her a better poet.
If you're working in a tight rhyme scheme, it elicits from you surprising and yet we hope apt metaphors and figures of speech that I don't think I would come to without that added push from the formal considerations. Poetry for me is the act of naming. Naming is a kind of taming. It's a way of possessing. It's a way of coming to terms with what's around us. Whether we're naming a feeling or whether we're naming events, whether it's a narrative poem or a lyric poem, whether it's an elegy or, whatever, still the specifics are, for me, always what make the poem. I had a student say to me angrily once, "The trouble with you is you always want more geography, more furniture, more chronology in poems," and that's absolutely true, I do. I mean, these, to me, are the touchstones of the poem.
Aristotle once concluded that poetry was the most philosophical of the arts, since it expresses universals rather than particulars. Yet a poet writing on the most general philosophical theme must first make some very specific choices. What is the setting and who is the persona? These are among the details that make a poem. They grab our interest and pull us in. So Aristotle was right. The poet does speak of the particular. We listen and imagine the universal.
Literary Visions is a production of Maryland Public Television.
Funding for this program was provided by the Annenberg CPB project.
For more information on the college telecourse, video cassettes, off-air videotaping, and books based on Literary Visions, call 1-800